Hey guys, I'm Leah and you're watching Live Your Best Life. And today we're talking with Loch Kelly, who's a fantastic author, meditation teacher, and psychotherapist, correct?
Yes, that's right, Leah.
I'm so glad to have you here.
Yeah, it's so great to be here.
Yeah, so there's a lot to uncover. I want to get to, mainly I'm interested in not just your latest book, which we'll get to, but how you came to do this work.
Sure. So there's a couple little stories that happened. One is that around sports. So I had some ADD and some dyslexia in school, so I knew I was smart, but I couldn't quite, write it on a paper.
Right.
So sports and music were often the areas that I could kind of get into a place where I felt very connected and competent and kind of flourishing. So I was playing quarterback on the football team, and I heard a guy on TV say, he's got eyes in the back of his head. And I thought, oh, eyes in the back of his head. I was 14, and I thought, oh, let me see if I can do that. I kind of know what that is. And I tried to see, and then I was like, oh no, that's not it. And then I actually opened my awareness around to kind of peripheral vision, and then kind of somehow continued to feel like my awareness opened around. And as soon as it became panoramic, it kind of dropped into this embodied cat-like interconnected state. And I felt like, oh, that's it. So then I played ice hockey goalie, and I would do that before I did it, before I played. And one of my friends came up to me after a game and said, oh man, you played great. How'd you do that? And I said, you really want to know? And I told him, I did this thing where I did it, and he went like, oh, cool. And he walked away. But a senior on the team, I was like a sophomore, the next week came and said, here, kid, read this. And it was Zen and the Art of Archery.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, oh, there's a group of people, there's a culture, there's a tradition of how to do this, and that it's valuable and it can be done intentionally. And that kind of started me on this.
On your interest. So speaking though about, I'm very interested in my work too, about helping people kind of overcome or break through some of their old paradigms, emotional, energetic imprints and so forth of our youth and our family of origin issues and so forth. And you mentioned you had ADD and some other challenges. Were those the basis of some insecurities that you would say for yourself, or?
Sure. I mean, I think I was like most adolescents, self-referencing, hyper-vigilantly concerned social self, and different ways that I, felt in touch with some part of me that didn't feel enough, and that when I would shift into this panoramic, embodied, interconnected sense of self, that wasn't a problem. But eventually, there's a sense of going beyond self to this greater sense of self that is naturally loving, and from there I could unburden and work with parts of myself that had a history of trauma or shame.
So would you call that embodiment of the mindfulness practice or awareness, or what would you call that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I kind of map it out, having gone and studied with many of the wisdom traditions, and then also studied a lot of the psychotherapy and neuroscience.
I think people are so intimidated with meditation, and it doesn't have to be a practice where you just sit on a cushion, an hour a day. And I think I don't necessarily practice the same way that you practice yet, but I think I fold in a mindfulness and meditation throughout the course of my day.
Yeah.
And I wish that more people had understanding of that, because it is a practical tool to help us recenter, to find our peace, to find that connection and awareness. And so tell me a little bit about how you came to that practice of meditation.
Yeah. So I ended up, going off and doing TM at 16, and then going to college, doing Zen. And then I did a graduate school in psychology and spirituality, where I went on a fellowship to Sri Lanka, India, Nepal.
Wow.
And in Sri Lanka, I kind of sat in the classical mindfulness, what I call deliberate mindfulness, insight meditation tradition. And I would sit 10-day retreats, 5-day retreats, 21 day. And I felt the effect. I felt calm after these long retreats, but a little bit almost like comfortably numb, a little calm, but then it wouldn't take too long to kind of
Right.
kick me back. Then I ended up in Nepal, where I met a Tibetan teacher who was giving out, kind of for the first time, to anybody who asked. A bunch of Westerners were there. This kind of direct practice teachings from this Tibetan tradition called Dzogchen and Mahamudra. And so he gave like a 15-minute talk and then showed how to shift awareness. And within 3 minutes, I felt the same way as I did at the end of a 10-day retreat, except much more alive, more embodied, more joyful, with my eyes open. So many of the practices of what I call effortless mindfulness are this way of doing small glimpses many times during the day.
Right. So, Loch, where did you grow up?
So I grew up outside of New York, in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love to hear people's stories, and you're a perfect example of that. It's like, you know, the everyday guy in the big city environment, playing sports, doing this, doing that, and something you kind of followed the call within yourself to something greater than yourself or the environment.
Yeah.
And you are one of the few, relatively speaking, people who actually went in search of it.
That's right.
Loch's new book is called The Way of Effortless Mindfulness. And in this book, you teach people in very practical ways how to get to this place and with eyes awake, sitting, walking, or what have you, doing whatever you're doing.
Whatever you're doing. In the middle of your day, just doing a 3 to 5 minute shift of awareness, whether it's instead of a coffee break or a cigarette break or a water break, you just do this, go outside, you can do it while walking, and you literally shift your mind and your sense of self to a different operating system that's like a flow state. So it's optimally functioning. It's not detached like passive calm. It's actually creative intelligence and feeling this sense of joy, well-being, and interest in engaging without the feeling of shame, or if the feeling of shame or fear or worry comes up, it's as if there are parts of you that you're aware of from you that isn't in shame or fear or worry.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's the other thing I really love about his work. And, you know, in my book too, The Fearless Path, I talk a lot about connection and holding space for all parts of us. And so many people, I think, especially in the past decade or two, you know, there's been a lot of teaching, people trying to get away from things and deny and hide and run and just ignore or let go of everything. And I don't think that that's serving us in the highest way possible. And I wonder, Loch, can you help me now and show our viewers kind of a little bit, quick minute or two process? Because it struck me and it stuck with me. Just the shift in how I felt. So should I turn towards you or?
Yeah, you don't have to.
Okay, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything.
Okay. So first one is kind of almost super simple in that the premise is just understanding that the way that we create this obscuring identity that creates suffering is kind of starting to feel like we're a thinker, or that thought's going to thought, and that we're like a little mini-me looking out of our eyes, and that thought-based identity, which we've come to believe, I think, therefore I am, it gets references the past and gets worried, and references the future and gets fearful, and so if that little thought-based self can relax, instead of trying to solve the problem of how do I be happy, how do I get what I need, because it can't ever find happiness, because it's made of thought and there's nothing for it to be satisfied with. So suffering in Buddhism is often translated, the word dukkha, as perpetual dissatisfaction. So if that problem-solving part can just relax, sometimes the natural, awake, embodied presence can show up. So the first little practice is simply inquiring and then looking with awareness, feeling with awareness kind of down and back. What's here now when there's no problem to solve? So just not going to thought, just relaxing that problem solver, and then just letting your awareness feel the qualities of what's aware and where you're aware from. So just see what you notice and what you do.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Well, interestingly, in this situation, in interviewing you, I'm very much here.
Yeah.
And I have a million thoughts, questions, ideas.
Yeah.
And when we started that practice, I got into my body and I felt how hot I am here. Yeah. Just I felt the warmth in my body, and just complete body sensation, which and then led me to this moment is wonderful right now.
Yeah. So that kind of stopping of the self-referencing, this pointer is showing that the solution is right here. It's this far away. It's already installed. So in other words, when the problem relaxes, the problem solver, which is actually the problem, there isn't a problem, it's actually the perpetual search for solution and problem. When that relaxes, then you feel just normal sensation or movement of thought, and then you feel the awareness that's more awareness-based knowing rather than thought-based, and then the qualities of well-being or wonderful, feel wonderful, are the symptoms of being aware from the awareness that's embodied, the kind of interconnected being, rather than the problem-solving thinker.
Right.
So in some ways it's just that small sense of self and this more here now interconnected awareness-based feeling of being. And so rather than thinking about it philosophically, okay, let me try to think about that, you have to literally let awareness drop out of the thinker, but not just into a gap of not knowing, but you have to find the new operating system of awareness that's embodied and interconnected, and then you kind of train to remain. And then you add activity there so that now you can walk from here, talk from here, relate and create from here.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Also, and I was thinking about intuition, really being part of your intuition instead of being separate or trying to find the intuition or trying to hear the intuition when you're not trying to solve that problem either. You become intuition. I think in this world of healing and wellness and mindfulness too, there's still a separation for a lot of people between mental health, emotional health, and physical health. And I think your work does a really good job of blending the brain and mental aspect of it with not necessarily a spiritual side, but not letting there be, not letting there be such divisiveness there.
Yes.
And for a lot of people there still is. It's like if they're a meditator, they're, they go this way, and if they're not, they go this way.
That's right.
And I think that there needs to be more of a bridge there, which I appreciate, and if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's definitely ways that the approaches help each other and overlap. But you couldn't say that if you just meditated, you would necessarily heal all of your psychological issues.
Right.
And if you just do psychotherapy, you're not likely to access awakening.
Right.
And if you just focus on physical health or energy healing, you might become more psychic, but that's not necessarily more, more awake.
Right.
Just because you can start to have these kind of perceptual shifts.
Right.
So there's something where they do come together, which we were talking about little, is that, to focus on awakening from the small sense of self to this loving no self, or this open-hearted awareness, that then you could do a spiritual bypass by staying in that, or denying it. And even from this kind of witnessing awareness, you could remain detached.
Right.
And I call that getting caught in the witness protection program.
Yeah.
So then the awareness comes back and feels this loving presence toward all of these parts of you that feel they've been neglected or hidden or shame-based, or I'm not good enough, or trauma. And there literally is now the capacity to love and to heal and to unburden these parts. And that's a lot of the work that I've done, is put this model together. You know, one of the kind of beliefs in some meditation systems is that you have to really have done a lot of practice to have these glimpses of awakening, or to be even given access to them. Whereas we found that people with complex trauma not only can access them, but need to access them, this sense of self. And they can, and when they do, they start on a new process of healing. So there's a beginning of a feeling that you can only grow up to a certain level. Until then, you have to wake up in order to continue to grow up. But you can have an awakening at any stage, and then you still need to grow up emotionally and developmentally, because otherwise you see these people who have initial awakenings, and then their adolescent parts take over and they act out.
Right.
They act out with sex, power, money, because they feel, well, I'm free of the restrictions of the superego and the judge and the critic. And now it's all illusion, or I'm able to do what I want, and there's no rules, so they don't get, kind of the awakening all the way to the heart, where you start to say, oh, this is me, how do I want to be treated? With respect, with integrity.
Yes.
Like immediately when you get to the heart awakening, there's like this immediate, respect, curiosity, listening, what are they feeling, what am I feeling, what are we?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you brought up another really important topic, I think, that is getting more attention, but the spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
And more, I think, which I'm really grateful to see the explosion of the healing world, and, a lot of attention there. But you put it really nicely and succinctly. I don't know that I could copy that, but there's a lot of people that are seeking, they're on a seeking path. But again, I think a lot of that path becomes about getting somewhere else, or enlightenment, or shifting into something different than the true self of who we are, incorporating and integrating all parts of ourselves, including the shame-filled parts, including the traumatic histories that we've had and so forth. And, I see it in simple ways, like people trying to use things like crystals or, what have you, to change them somehow.
That's right.
But then also psychologically, we do a very tricky kind of thing in our minds of, it's almost like, get me out of here, get me out of here so I can get to this better place.
That's right.
And if you'd speak a little bit more to that, then that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, that there's can be a spiritual bypass, or an impulse to transcend or to get out of pain by dissociating, or by creating a sense that there's heaven on earth, that is something that will then be beyond emotion, or there's a state like that, as if that's even what enlightenment is about.
Right.
And that's not the sense of what it is. So that it's almost like having a full map. So seeing that you do need to kind of get out of that small sense of self, but you don't need to kill the ego or fight the ego or get rid of the ego, or realize I'm awareness, there's no person here named Loch, there's just awareness, everything else is coming and going. Would you like some tea? All tea is the same. This kind of robotic or detached witness. And then I also have these terms, so I call it the psychological underpass. which is complements the spiritual bypass, which
Okay.
means you just do psychological work and you never do spiritual work.
Right.
So you just keep trying to heal and do psychotherapy and do self-improvement, thinking that you can clean up the cloud of self by healing your inner wounds, but not ever having access to this greater sense of being, and almost like being more of a secular, only doing psychological work. And then the third one is cognitive overpass, which is kind of, you have all these ideas about, if I do this crystal healing and if I go to the shaman in Colombia, then I'll have a vision and that will be it, and that's what I need, and it's only there, or it's in the Himalayas, or it's with this guru, or it's with this. So you think, or you develop a philosophy of, just be happy, or just, so you cognitively bypass what's happening emotionally and what's happening on a spiritual level. And it's really those two, that kind of non-dual, or sometimes what they call two truths, that there's an ultimate reality and a relative reality, and they're not two. So to access this ultimate awareness-based dimension that's free of pain and free of suffering, and then from there feel the loving connection back to the parts of you that as human beings will always have some pleasant and unpleasant feelings. There'll always be pain, and you have a history of conditioning that needs and wants your love. And once you find the capacity for that, it's really possible to live a more juicy life, that's kind of like a fully intimate human life with yourself and with others, that has respect and responsibility. And sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well, and it's like, yep, that's right.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Get parking tickets and
Yeah, exactly. And accepting that. Yeah. So what would you say, I know you work with a lot of clients and a lot of groups and so forth, for a person that's been through some severe trauma in their past and they're terrified of re-entering that place of pain. What would be one of the first steps for them? I know that's simplifying things very much, but how would you direct a person?
I mean, that's the thing, is that if you have trauma, you can't avoid, it's going to be, it's playing a role in your life already, whether you're depressed because you're trying to repress it, or you're anxious because it's in the background, or it's, you've created a protector identity that's acting out or keeping you isolated, or in a role at work, I just go to work, and whatever the defense is. So to find some help, you can't do it by yourself. So certainly some type of therapist that has a full model of this kind of loving self that can be with you and guide you. And then you'll find other things that, so it's not just the therapy, but that can give you some tools, and then you'll find other things in your life that are healing, and other groups and other peers and other friends that will start to create a whole community of healing for you.
Right. Yeah. People ask me a lot, through the traumas that I've gone through and working with other people, and it sounds like a lot, but because, one, I'm experiential. I think most of us are experiential, tactile, visual kind of feeling creatures. I think enfolding as many elements, maybe not overwhelming ourselves, but body work is a wonderful tool for a lot of people, depending on what kind of traumas they've been through.
That's right.
Cleaning up and changing your diet to support an internal system, the mental, it's the whole package. And and I think, like you spoke about before, people get very kind of almost like a diet, going on a diet. People get very fixated on, if I do this, but it's really like, I like to think of, what can I do to support and add to my life today to help me feel through this a little easier, or with enough support that I need.
Yeah, so once you kind of learn this system, which is kind of this advanced system, having taught other forms of meditation, yoga, qigong, it doesn't take any longer to learn it. initially it's a little new, it's a little like, what is that, or how do you do that? But that's like learning curve for anything,
Right.
So you're gonna learn it. But so what we're gonna do is basically what I call shifting from head to heart.
Okay.
So it's
I'm
not,
love this one.
yeah, it's not your emotional heart, which kind of tends to be here. You're literally almost dropping below that to this heart door, heart space that literally opens up behind you to this, what I call awareness that has your back. And then you're not only aware of it, but you're aware from it. So it's almost like you have eyes of the heart. So you're feeling interconnected this way. So this is one of the ways awakening is often talked about decentering from a small sense of self, but this is, so we're going to the new operating center rather than just deconstructing and ending up in like,
Right.
I'm free, and then pop back. We're literally showing, okay, are you aware from here? Awareness isn't in your thinking, it can know your jaw from your jaw, your throat from your throat, your body from your body, and then your heart space from your heart space. So some of you may have just done that just by me saying that. So the premise is that the intelligence isn't located in thought, it's that it feels like it is because thought starts looping and then awareness identifies. So that word disidentify or detach is literally not you detaching from something, but literally the awareness disidentifying. And then like a little globe of awareness, we're just going to have it drop from head to heart. So let's try that. And you can try it again, or I have some YouTubes or written stuff in my book. So just feel the normal feeling of me as you're listening or watching. Your eyes can be open or closed, whichever you like. And then feel that felt sense of hearing in the middle of your head or seeing, that feeling of awareness that's identified with this thinker. And then somehow awareness, as like a globe of awareness, can simply unhook and step back a little bit into the room. And then feel as if awareness, like a local bubble, can feel as if it's dropped into your smile and your jaw, as if awareness is aware from within. And then feel awareness move itself down to be aware of your throat from within your throat. And just notice that you're not stretching attention down. You don't need to look up to thought to feel and know the awareness, the effervescent aliveness, and the space within your throat, directly from your throat. And then feel as if that bubble of awareness drops below your neck to feel your body, upper body from within your body. And then feel as if that knowing awareness can drop until it finds this safe heart space or heart mind within. So that you're aware of this heart space, and now you're aware from this heart space of all perception coming to this heart mind, as if this is the new boundless and yet embodied place where the infinite and the finite meet, where you go deep within to find the subtlest dimension of knowing that may open up behind you and all around you to this field of awareness that's equally inside and out. So you have this boundless heart and this tender heart and this heart mind from which you can know and just notice what it's like to not orient to thought and yet be alert, so you could respond in any moment. And there's a potential to know, but you have peace of mind, open heart, interconnected feeling of being. And just to test, just let your phone number arise in your heart mind. And then let it go. And just be, just seeing from being. So that's
It's so sweet.
yeah.
Yeah. That made me want to cry a little bit.
Yeah. So you get in that tender heart's allowed to be there, in
Yeah.
that kind of sweet sadness almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's one of the signs of it. You can kind of relax into that more tender-hearted vulnerability that has courage too, though it has some.
Yeah. You can just show up.
You need to show up
Yeah.
and not feel hurt. You feel like tender and almost like you want to cry. But if someone said rude, you'd be like, okay.
That's a good place to operate from.
Right.
Well, if you like what you hear from Loch, like I said, you can find him all over the web, courses, retreats, workshops. You're at Omega often.
Yeah, I have a website, lochkelly.org, LOCHKELLY.org. So I'll be in Europe for a while, and I'm on East Coast, West Coast, down south.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
a lot of places to come and visit, and a lot of free YouTubes, and my book is available. There's a little place on my website to get some videos and audios free about that. Yeah,
Well, thank you for the work you do
thank you, Leah.
and for the interview today. And we will see you next time.